several weeks, Fox News has gone in depth investigating the horrors of human trafficking and the way law enforcement responds to it. Tonight we take a look at advocates who have devoted their lives to battling this dark trade. Due to the sensitive nature of the subject matter, viewer discretion is advised. Here's John Scott.
Right below my mirror, standing in a torrential downpour, shivering, was about a 15 or 16-year-old girl.
Gary Smith has driven tens of thousands of miles in his tractor-trailer rig. His work puts him in a position to see things most Americans don't.
I rolled my window down, and I screamed at her, "What?" And she said, "Do you want some company?" And I screamed back at her, "I'm not lonely. Go away." I never gave that young girl the opportunity to be rescued, and I have to live with that.
Smith is now an ambassador for Truckers Against Trafficking, an organization created by truckers to help curb sex trafficking among truckers.
We travel our nation's highways and byways, and we work in conjunction with law enforcement. There's a lot more of us daily out on these roads than there is law enforcement. And we see things.
Even government agencies as vast and well-funded as the FBI have to call upon their citizen counterparts for assistance, making Smith and his watchful truckers point men in the fight against human trafficking.
The victim specialists really have to work with their local partners, with NGOs, with local police, with Child Protective Services.
That's Catherine Turman, the assistant director in charge of the FBI's Victim Services Division.
If you do this work for very long, as many of us you realize that no one agency can do it all.
Turman's work focuses on life after trafficking. But for many advocates, the battle begins long before the FBI gets involved.
She has a 40% higher chance of death than any regular person. And so the likelihood of her dying is very, very high.
Teresa Flores is a survivor of sex trafficking.
He said, "I like you." That's all it took. That afternoon, I was drugged and raped. He came up to me at school with an envelope. And in that envelope were photos.
Those photos were taken without Teresa's knowledge after she was raped.
He said, "My 2 older cousins were there and they took these photos. And you have to earn them back or else."
Flores was only 15 years old when a group of classmates coerced her through extortion into a life of forced sex work.
I was 17 when the trafficking ended because we moved away.
Flores is also the founder of the organization Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution, created to combat forced sex work across the country. Her organization prints labels for bars of soap placed in motels, imprinted with the number for the National Human Trafficking Hotline.
We also have a support group.
Flores endured horrific experiences while she was trafficked that motivate her to carry on with her work. Her advocacy, and yes, those little bars of soap, have saved lives.
It's really important to see that people do care and they want to stop it. So that's one way that we measure success.
The experiences of Smith and Flores led them both to a deeper understanding about the horrors of trafficking, motivating them to choose a path of advocacy.
I'm just shocked that so many people still have no idea about this.
I had to make a solemn promise to myself that never again, not on my watch.
Thanks again for joining us in that latest installment in our investigation. Next week, a final look at the impact of human trafficking.